Golden Spiral Media presents The Flash Rewatch.
I think you've been reading too many comic books.
Dedicated to the 1990 television series The Flash on CBS.
I think I'm starting to like this.
Join Cory and Tom each week as they chase down the fastest man alive and examine the short run of 22 episodes.
I mean, you people have a reputation. Unorthodox experiments, secret government contracts.
Send us your feedback at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatch podcast. And follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Anytime you need me, I'll be there in a flash.
And welcome back to the Rewatch podcast and the Flash 90 Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm your 1975 month of December Playgirl centerfold. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to tell me what that is a reference to. I've got a
just wait.
good idea.
Just wait.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We are kicking off the Flash 90 Rewatch. I'm so excited.
We are. Yes, definitely.
So we're talking about the first two episodes, the pilot and Out of Control. But before we get into it, to remind our listeners that we are now officially part of the Golden Spiral Media Podcast Network.
Woohoo! Yeah.
So good.
Very excited to be a part of it.
You can send us your feedback at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback, where you can type a message, or you can use the SpeakPipe widget to record your own voice, or you can call 304-837-2278 and we'll play your feedback on the show. That'd be so cool.
Mm-hmm. That'd be awesome. That'd be great.
And also head over to facebook.com/goldenspiralmedia and follow on Twitter at GSM Podcasts. All right. Well, let's get into the first episode discussion. And it is the very first episode, the pilot, written by Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, directed by Robert Iskov. And this originally aired September 20th of 1990.
I can't believe I ate all this food. Pretty disgusting, isn't it?
No. It's interesting. You're burning up so much energy, your body's demanding that you replace it.
Tina, I can't pretend to understand all of this, but if everything's moving faster, I could be aging prematurely, right? I mean, my body could fail. I could burn up.
Look, I think I can help you, Barry. But I don't want anyone else to know I'm treating you.
Why? What's wrong?
Well, if the people I work with learn about you, they're going to take control of your treatment. You'll be studied, analyzed, tested.
I can't do that. I'm a private citizen.
Look, if you have anywhere near the power I suspect you do, the government could classify you as a security risk.
Whoa.
They try to take your cells apart, try to make 100 of them.
I think you've been reading too many comic books.
I'm being serious, Barry. I've seen it happen.
Your husband.
David discovered an enzyme that stimulated the brain and enhanced the senses. We were asked to test human subjects before the process was perfected. David said no. Our funding was threatened, so one night when he was alone, he tried the enzyme on himself. My husband was dead when I found him.
Okay. We'll do this however you want.
Okay. Now, does anyone else know about your condition?
No one. Earl, I guess.
Oh.
My dog.
You know, Barry, I feel lucky that you came to me. You could just be my life's work.
I better not be.
No, I didn't mean
I want to
it.
be rid of this. And that's the deal.
With Central City being terrorized by a motorcycle gang called the Dark Riders, the police, under the direction of Commander Jay Allen, find themselves hard-pressed to capture them. While Barry Allen, Jay's brother, as well as a police scientist, works in the crime lab late one night, trying to help crack the case, a lightning bolt crashes through the window, hitting him and causing the chemicals he was using to explode. After recovering, Barry begins to experience side effects, such as moving his hand so fast to grab a cup of coffee that it gets thrown across the room from the force, or chasing after his dog and then outrunning it straight into a bush, and then trying to run and catch a bus, but losing control of his speed and ending up at a beach 30 miles away in just a matter of seconds. Barry contacts a specialist at Star Labs, Tina McGee, who runs tests and determines that his body, physically and mentally, is being accelerated. And due to these changes, his body is burning more energy, needing more food to replace it, explaining his huge appetite as of late. Meanwhile, Jay Allen finds his motorcycle police force the subject of a humiliating attack by the Dark Riders on the evening of their debut. It's revealed that the Dark Riders' leader, Pike, was once a motorcycle cop and Jay's partner, but he was involved in illegal activities such as hijacking guns, narcotics, and explosives. Jay found out and set a trap that led to Pike's scars, arrest, and eventual escape from a hospital. Before Barry can warn Jay of this, Jay falls for a similar trap set by Pike, resulting in him dying in Barry's arms. Jay's death leads Barry to want revenge and asks Tina to modify a suit she's been using to help test his abilities into a disguise. She agrees, but with the stipulation that she will build monitors into the suit to keep an eye on him in case problems arise, such as his frequent moments of dizziness that have been occurring as his body adjusts to his powers. He immediately takes down several of Pike's goons and they're arrested, claiming to have seen a red ghost. Barry's crime lab prowess allows him to eventually find Pike's hideout and reveals the information to his chief, as well as Pike's plan to break out the inmates at the prison. The Dark Riders easily take over the prison and free and arm the prisoners, but Barry arrives to save the day, using his speed to steal the guns, subdue prisoners, and get tear gas delivered inside. Pike manages to get away, getting the upper hand on Barry, who succumbs to his dizziness, but recovers and then captures Pike, as Tina and he agree to work together to help stop crime and save people.
Dad?
Very Losa.
Mom told me you'd be out of here.
I could hardly cry yesterday with 300 cops standing around. Just wanted to say my own goodbye, I guess.
Yeah. I stopped by Jay's house. He was holding up pretty well, considering. But Sean, he wouldn't let go of me.
Damn it. I walked the beat for 30 years. Never made it higher than sergeant. But your brother, he could have made chief. Could have been anything he wanted.
I made a decision, Dad. I'm going after Pike myself.
Don't be a damn fool.
I'm on to something. If I play my cards right, I can track him down.
Leave that for the homicide boys. Your mother's got enough grief.
Mom doesn't have to know.
Son, I know what you're feeling. I'm torn up too. But a man's got to know his limitations.
You don't have any faith in me at all, do you?
That's not it, Barry.
I'm asking for your blessing.
Oh, I can't, Barry. You're all we've got left.
It's not the same anymore.
If there's anything I try to teach you two boys, is that you don't fire a gun without a bullet in the chamber.
I have the bullet.
Alright, so let's get into our Flashpoints segment where we, I guess, discuss little tidbits and things that we noticed throughout the episode.
Yeah, and little things that we noticed that we thought would call to your attention. Or sometimes when I'm researching the episode, I'll find out little things that sort of just don't fit into the normal story rundown. So we figure we put it all in here. If you guys have any ideas, about little tidbits about the show or the episode, let us know, because we're trying to find things out about the show, but it was made in 1990, and we had trouble finding things for Lois and Clark because that was like 1993, and this is even earlier. So, trying to find forums and stuff that were around back then, not so easy in the modern day. So if you know anything, let us know, and maybe we can work it in. All right. So first thing that I noticed in the show, it just was kind of funny. There's a point where Barry is not at the crime lab, and he's doing something with Tina, or off doing something flashy or whatever, and he comes into the crime lab late, and Julio has decided just to leave. Like he's like, well, Barry's not here, I'm gonna leave. And I was like, that's weird, because he's not hired by Barry. He's hired by the Central City Police Force.
Right.
Like, he has a job.
It'd be a government job.
I know. Like, you can't find something else to do. You're like, oh yeah, Barry's not here. I guess I don't have to work at all. No, I don't think that's how it works.
You probably get pretty good pay.
Yeah.
It's tax, but hey,
Exactly.
I'll duck out early. No one's around.
I know. I was like, okay, well, whatever. Let's see. Also, I found this while I was researching the show. I was trying to find scripts from the shooting scripts from the episodes, and I found some transcripts, which really doesn't help us because that's just someone who's typed out exactly what they said. But I did find it was marked as an unmade script. Now, I haven't actually read it through yet or anything because I just found it just yesterday, and it's called War Wagon. It was written by Stephen Long Mitchell and Craig W. Van Sickle. And it says revised first draft August 3rd, 1990. So it's right there in that year. And there's no director listed. It says directed by, and it's just blank. So they never actually made it to that stage even. So I'm over the course of the next week or so here, I'm gonna read it through and see if there's anything in it that reminds me of something that's been shot. Like maybe they rewrote the script or something and turned it into another episode. I don't know. So we'll let you know as we go through about this, and maybe we can post a link to it once we get closer to the end of the season.
Yeah, very cool.
Also, what I found out about the show is they actually released a soundtrack at some point to the show featuring all of Danny Elfman's music, and it was a 2-disc, a 2-disc extravaganza. Tons of music was released on this soundtrack, and apparently from the page that I found it on, there were only 3,000 copies made. I don't know why only 3,000. I do know that for myself, back in 1989, 1990, they came out with the Batman instrumental soundtrack, and I bought that. And I never even knew about those type of soundtracks before, so it was new to me. Maybe they thought this wouldn't sell great. I don't know. But it was released with it says limited edition of 3,000 units. You can look at the listing at lalalandrecords.com. You just go there, search up Flash, and you can listen. I think there's 5 or 6 examples that you can click on and listen to the samples. But it's out of print. There's no way to get it. I looked on YouTube to see if I could find the soundtrack, and I can't find the whole soundtrack, but there are bits and pieces of the soundtrack on YouTube itself. So you can get some of it on there, just not every single thing on here. I mean, the track listing is broken down by The Flash and then all the stuff that's concerns him, and then they have a bunch of tracks for Captain Cold, a bunch of tracks for The Trickster, and then they have the Flash end credits. That's 35 tracks on CD1. And then there's still
Wow.
CD2. Yeah, there's still CD2, where they break it down by more episodes. There's one, I guess the episode is Watching the Detective, Ghost in the Machine, Done with Mirrors, Fast Forward, Trial of the Trickster, and then finally another version of the Flash end credits. So there's a ton of music on here, over an hour on both discs, if you can find it, that is, because like I said, it's out of print and was very limited in its run.
It does make me wonder how much someone would sell it for if they had a copy and put it on eBay.
Oh yeah,
is it
exactly,
that
exactly.
coveted that it would demand hundreds of dollars or something like that?
Yeah, you never know. I also found out that if you've bought the DVD of these Flash 90, you notice there's no special features on this thing at all, nothing. The producers felt kind of bad about that, what's Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo. So they actually did a commentary and they put it up on this website that we can link this to in the Facebook page when we post this episode up. So there's a commentary you can play along with this pilot episode, so you could hear their thoughts on actually creating the Flash. They did one for this episode, and they did one for the Trickster coming up later on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a neat idea, because for some reason they weren't allowed to put stuff up on the DVD. And they said, well, let's take this matter into our own hands and put it up online.
It's probably that thing of they're like, all right, so we've got this and we can put it on a DVD and whack it out there for everyone who wants to buy it. But let's not go crazy here. Let's not investigate too deeply and try to find special features and behind the scenes or do commentary tracks. That's too much. We don't think we could recoup our money by doing that.
And speaking of behind the scenes stuff and special features, there was a promo video released at some point of the Flash TV show, and the way it appears, we'll put again a lot of links for this first episode. This promo video looks like it was made for TV producers or TV news people to sort of showcase. It's divided into sections. They have behind the scenes clips, and then they have interviews and sound clips, and they're all separated by a blue screen telling you who's going to say what, so you can type in, the right person who, listed on the screen. But it's all this stuff about how they sort of made the suit, how they developed the suit for him, and then sound clips of them talking about their time on the show and everything. This was released back in the 90s. You could tell this is, back then to promote the show. So it's about 15 minutes long. So it's a nice little feature they could have put on the DVD.
Nice one. Well, you know what we can do now, because we're on the network, on Golden Spiral Media, is we can actually put all this into our, sort of collate it into our episode show notes.
Ah, that's cool.
So we can put all these links and direct access to the videos and everything right there. So when we put out these episodes, we'll always put out a link to the episode on the Golden Spiral Media website. So head over there, because we'll put all this information into those show notes, and you'll be able to catch all these videos and whatnot that we find. So
that's cool.
Make sure you guys have links to it out there in Listenerville.
Barry, I wanted to talk to you at the funeral, but there was just so much to say. I'm really sorry about Jay. I know how close you were.
Yeah.
Look, I know I should have called first, but I just needed to see you. I'll tell you how much I missed you.
I missed you too.
Oh, you still love me, don't
Yeah,
you?
of course. Yeah, but after everything that's happened in the last few days, I think I feel differently about a few things.
Well, like what?
Well, like marriage, for one. I mean, we weren't doing so bad before.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, well, you were right. I mean, there's a lot going on in our lives right now, and I'm gonna make it a lot easier on both of us. The pressure's off.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, that's great, Barry. I mean, I don't know what I mean. I came here to tell you that I thought it over, and if it was the only way we could stay together, I was gonna say yes. And now, sometimes you're very confusing.
Yeah, that makes two of us.
So, what do you say? Can we start to see each other again? Maybe put things back the way they were?
I'd like to try.
All right, so let's get into the rundown where we talk about the episode in full. So I was thinking maybe we do this a little bit differently. In the past, we kind of sort of went just through the episode linearly and discussed plot point by plot point. I think this time round, we're kind of bullet pointed the major parts. So we can sort of hit on a subject and then move on. So, mixing it up a little, folks. So go with us on this.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's begin, I guess, with the origins, because really that's the first half of this feature-length pilot, right? It's an hour and a half pilot, which I guess if you put commercials in there would kind of pad it out about 2 hours when it aired.
Yep.
And the first half really is the origins. Barry Allen, who is he? How does he get his powers? How does he become the Flash? So at the beginning, our introduction to Barry, his family, his friends, and his co-workers. So I guess this kind of happens at the start where they're having this family dinner, right? We really get to know Barry and his family, beginning with his brother, Jay.
Now, do you remember his brother Jay? Does the actor look familiar?
Yes, we did talk about him over on Lois and Clark.
He played the...
He was the old
man.
guy that Clark.
Yeah, and he learned how to transfer his mind into other people and animals, and he was a chimpanzee at the beginning of the episode, and then then he learned he could project his mind into Superman, became Superman for the episode as well. So he's back. He's, like I said back then, this actor, I should have wrote his name down, I forgot, but he's been in a lot of different TV shows and whatnot, but I know him from this, I know him from Lois and Clark, and he was also in the Incredible Hulk TV movies that came out back in the 90s as well. So he's got some superhero pedigree.
Now, as I talked about in our episode 0, I'm not like an aficionado of The Flash, or the comic books for that matter, really. Barry Allen, in the comics, he doesn't have a brother named Jay, does he?
Not as far as I remember. I mean, there's Jay Garrick, but he's not a brother. Exactly. He's another Flash. But yeah, so as far as I know, he doesn't. In fact, his whole layout in this scene here of his mother and father and his brother's wife and all that, I don't think any of that is in the comics except his mother. I remember his mother being a part of it, but the other members, not so much.
So this is pretty much something they've invented for the series.
Right, yeah.
And probably called the brother Jay as an homage to Jay Garrick.
That's what I think,
Another version of The Flash.
That's what I would say. Because in the comics, it's very meta in the comics. Barry Allen, in the comics, reads comics of Jay Garrick, the original Flash. So they show him reading about just Jay Garrick guy and thinking about having powers of, super speed and all that. And then lo and behold, he gets hit by the lightning and gets the powers that he was just reading about. So it's very meta like that, especially when he later meets Jay Garrick and finds out they aren't just comics, it's real life. So it's very, very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this too in the episode 0, but this series is, in a way, in continuity with the current series of The Flash.
Apparently,
because they talk about, like parallel universes, and, Earth 1 and Earth 2 and an infinite amount of universe. So this is pretty much just an Earth where this version of Barry Allen, I guess, 30 some odd years earlier, became The Flash.
Exactly.
In a different manner. Because John Wesley Shipp, who's playing Barry Allen in this, came back in the new series, but in that he was Jay Garrick from a different Earth as well. So yeah, it's muddled, but not really, because you can just say infinite universes, infinite possibilities, so whatever. Slide as much.
There you
go. Talk about this.
There you go.
So it is kind of just like a fun way to make it make sense, even though it doesn't.
Exactly. I'm with you.
And of course, Jay's going to come into Barry's motivations later in the episode. But what about his mum and dad? I mean, she's obviously very housewife.
Yes.
Stay-at-home mum, raised her kids, kind of woman. Dad is the ex-cop who loves that Jay is a cop and kind of always takes a chance to have a dig at Barry because he's not a cop.
Exactly.
He's in the crime lab.
Yep.
So is this a continuity thing with the comics? Because I always thought of like CSI and Crime Lab to be like a really more modern thing.
Yeah, well, he did work in the comics when he came out in the 1960s. He was a police scientist, so that is consistent. So that was his job, back then. But like I said, there was no father to make fun of him, for doing that. No brother or anything like that. It was just accepted. He's a police scientist. This is his job. It's what he's got to do. He's on call. There's a crime. He has to go take care of it. So yeah, it's pretty accurate. It's really pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think even here in 1990, like the terms that they use seem a bit outdated now. Like when he talks about the crime lab and stuff like that, and like you said, like in the 60s, like police scientist.
Yes.
These days, like it's been coined. CSI has been on TV. We all know what a crime scene investigator is.
Exactly.
Forensics and stuff like these are all like the words that you use, like the proper words.
Exactly.
Police scientist, not so much. It's a bit old schooly.
I know. I think even in the cartoon version of The Flash, that's like the introduction. Is like police scientist works in the lab. Police scientist Barry Allen works silently. So yeah,
but crime forensics and all that sort of stuff, like that's the modern thing, and that's what they do in the new show.
Yeah,
right? They're up on it. And speaking of which, this kind of it has that noir-y feel, which
oh yeah,
it worked really well with Lois and Clark, and was obviously a derivative of the '89 Batman.
Yes, we talked about that a lot in the episode 0. So if you missed that, go check that out.
But what do you think about that feel that they put into this episode, or well, into the series, I guess, as a whole? Does it work for you?
It does, but like it's not very consistent because you'll notice like there's some cars that look really old, like very, like you said, noir. And then there's like newer cars in there as well.
Yeah, just like a brand new 1990 car.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not totally consistent, but I like what they're attempting to do. Again, this was like very influenced by the '89 Batman, which had Art Deco everywhere. Like you look at the sets for that and they're just gorgeous, And this was definitely an attempt to try to, keep the same feel as that. Even so much as you notice in these first 2 episodes, a lot of the action with the Flash happens like at night in the dark.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah.
And like traditionally the Flash is not exactly a dark character. He's not someone who like, comes out of the shadows and tries to be all mysterious like. But it's they were obviously trying to, pay homage to the Batman movie.
Yeah. I kind of wish they hadn't done it, to tell you the truth. Like,
really?
You're right. It's just too inconsistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to shoehorn it in or something. Whereas
right.
with the modern series, like it feels like the Flash should be modern, with police forensics and stuff like that. Like it should be cutting edge.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be old school.
Well, yeah, especially with Star Labs and everything.
Yeah,
Definitely
the
should be more
forefront of
modern.
the future and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it does weird me out a bit here and there. Moving on. Barry's girlfriend, Iris West herself. This I was caught off guard with. I mean, she's like an artist or poet or something, and she's kind of just fancy free, and I don't know. She doesn't seem like a good fit for Barry. Honestly, I don't.
Yeah,
it just doesn't seem to mesh very well, right?
She's very different from the comic book version. In the comic book version, she was a reporter. And now I'm trying to remember back when he first started, if she was a reporter, like in those first couple episodes, or if that's something that just came up, as they developed the stories. But her whole thing was she was a reporter, and she was always like making dates with Barry, and he was always being late. Even when he got the powers, he was always late. That was like a joke, a running joke. Barry Allen, the slowest man alive. Whereas we know he's the Flash, the fastest man alive. Mm-hmm. So that was like a joke in the comics all the time. She was a little bit of high maintenance in the comics. Like I can't. I'm trying to. It's been a while since I've read the old 1960s comics. I used to have some of them, and she did seem a little bit more of a high maintenance girlfriend. Like he was always disappointing her somehow. Whereas this version is just, she's so flaky. I mean, she seems like a lot of work in a different way, than the comic book version.
Well, and the thing is, the Barry seems like the clingy one, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Where, like, throughout the episode, like, it's almost as if he's, like, made it clear to her that he wants to marry her, and she just does everything she can to kind of skirt that topic whenever it comes up.
Exactly.
Leaving him feeling embarrassed.
And that's something like, you've never seen these episodes before, and I've seen them a couple times over the years, and something that I kind of really forgot about. Like, I forgot about that part of his character here. It doesn't really play into the rest of the series. It was just something they put here into the pilot, so we won't have to deal with it very long, which thankfully.
Yeah, I don't know, it's through the span of this whole episode, it's just like they're on but then they're not, and then spoiler alert, Jay dies, and she like they're back on again maybe, and I don't know, it's a weird relationship that spans this hour and a half.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Co-worker Julio.
Julio's awesome.
This guy is pretty good. I know him as he was the blind guy on Becker.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's where I know him from. Yeah. So I was kind of when I saw him, I'm just like, I know that guy. Yeah, I used to watch Becker. That's a good show.
Yeah, no, he's a fun character. He's so like relaxed and like just calm about things. It's a nice contrast, to Barry. Not that Barry is like all uptight, but he's very focused, which is that's how his character was, on the show. He was very focused on his work and everything. So it's a nice contrast to his character. All
right, don't spoil me too much.
Okay.
But I am hoping that he's just going to be clueless for like ever. Because I don't know, he kind of just seems like that kind of guy who just like, he will constantly witness weird things happening with Barry and then never question it. Just
right.
It's
He just like shakes it off.
That's weird. Oh well.
I know, yeah, like whatever.
Like, where did Barry go so quickly? Oh well.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like today where, you know, they would like delve into that and try to explore that a little more. It's just like, whatever. All right, moving on.
Just there to give a bit of exposition about some pollen and dirt or something.
Exactly.
Hey, Barry, we're getting into some serious OT here. Oh, well, let's stick around and work anyway. But yeah, fun character. I like it. What about Star Lab's Tina McGee?
Now, she's from the comics. She's definitely from the comics. Now, here's the thing. Here's where things, it kind of like, it plays into the modern CW show as well, where they sort of take Barry Allen and they make him a mixture of the different Flashes that they've had over the years. Because Barry Allen originally started in the 1960s in the comics, and then after so many years in the 80s, he left. He was killed, and his sidekick Kid Flash took over as the adult Flash, costume and everything. And so for, the 80s onward, we had Wally West as the main Flash, and Barry Allen was just, the previous Flash. So a lot of people, sort of like, they know Wally West more than Barry Allen, because that's the Wally that's the Flash they knew. And when the show came out, it was Wally West who was the Flash. So there were some slight differences between their powers. They were both speedsters, of course, but Wally West was the one who knew Tina McGee. Wally West was the Flash that had to eat in order to keep up his speed, otherwise he'd start, feeling dizzy. That really didn't happen to Barry Allen. It was a different power set for him. So they sort of took those things and mashed them together to make this current show, which is what they did with the CW show as well. They took bits and pieces and put them together. So yeah, Tina McGee comes from the Wally West era, but in here we have her with Barry Allen.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting setup because, again, it is different to the modern show. Tina McGee doesn't actually work at Star Labs in that show. The actress herself is in the show playing Tina McGee.
Yes, which I think is great. I'm glad they did that.
But yeah, interesting character again. It's nice to sort of break it up a bit with a British accent.
Oh, yeah. Like I said in episode 0, I was a big fan of her from Max Headroom. Fell in love with her right away in that show, and saw her on here. I was like, oh, yeah, more of her, more of Amanda Pays, I remember that name, like, etched in my mind.
Nice.
So now we've got these other two co-workers of Barry's, Officers Bellows and Murphy. And these guys, I mean, it's not spoiling to say that they're going to be, there for the pretty much the whole run of the show. You're going to see them throughout the whole thing. And they're just a lot of fun. They're fun characters. In the modern show, we have Bellows, who actually plays the mayor in the CW show. And then, to go back to my my opening introduction of this episode, Murphy, the one with the mustache, actually was a 1975 Playgirl centerfold.
What?
Yeah. Now, I am dedicated to the show. I do what I can for you guys. I do the work so you don't have to. I went ahead and I found his picture from the December issue of 1975 Playgirl. I've censored it. To make it friendly to Facebook.
I can't wait to see it.
It's funny.
All right. What about Chief Cooper?
Yeah, Chief Cooper, like, I forgot he was even in this. Like, he's not in the comics. Okay. He's like a conglomeration of the different captains they've had in their, in the Central City precinct. But he's there. He's kind of forgettable. He's not,
I agree. Like, he shows up at one point to sort of just like give a speech on the TV about how we're going to get those Dark Riders.
Right.
And then he has like one conversation with Barry, and that's about it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we're going to see him again because I know in the next episode we're introduced to a new character who I remember being in the whole run. So that's why I think Chief Cooper sort of like goes out of the way. We might see him again. We might not. I can't remember, honestly.
All right. I'm sure we'll cheer the day we get the return of Chief Cooper.
Oh, yes. vital character.
Right.
The mythos. So we also got Linda Park, the anchor on the news there, and she is also a character from the comics, and again, she's from the Wally West era. She actually has a romance with Wally West at some point. She becomes his wife, even. So, and she's pretty true to the comics in that she is Korean, but in the comics she's a lot younger. In this pilot, she's a bit older, more middle-aged looking. So.
Right.
A little difference there.
She reminded me of, what was it on Family Guy?
Oh, Trisha something.
Yeah, she's like, I'm standing outside the Park Royal Hotel because they don't allow Asians inside.
That's pretty good. I forgot about her. Yeah, that's
what she kind of looks like that. Not to say that all Asians look alike. I'm not trying to offend anybody. Just what it reminded me of.
Exactly. I'm half Asian, so I forgive you if you're you're absolved. Okay, in the name of the Flash, Lois and Clark, and Sliders, you are absolved of any crime here.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, and finally, a new character to the comics. He wasn't in the comics originally. Is this Joe Klein character played by Richard Belzer?
Yeah.
This character did not exist in the comics, but after the show was done, the producers, again, Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, they actually went on to write Flash comics after this show, and they brought Joe Klein into their universe in the comics. So he does become a character in the comics.
Yeah, as soon as he popped up, because, again, this is a Lois and Clark connection, right?
Yep.
He did show up as he was some sort of detective or something in that show, right?
Yeah, Inspector Henderson was.
That's right.
Yes.
So I was quite pleased to see him show up there as well. Nice little crossover bit. All right, so I guess let's talk about how Barry gains his powers in this one. It's a bit different. It's a little bit more hokey. I'm assuming this is how it kind of played out in the comics. Am I right?
Yeah, it's pretty much exact. I mean, he was working late at night, with the chemicals, trying to solve some case or something, and a lightning bolt just boom comes into the lab and shocks him and spills the chemicals, and he gets the powers. So it's actually pretty true to the comics, the original comics.
That's what I mean. It's like really hokey things, like chemicals plus lightning equals super speed for some reason.
Yeah, it's very simple. Later on, they retcon to say that the lightning, was choosing Barry. There's a whole thing about the Speed Force, of course. Mm-hmm. None of that was in the original. That stuff they came up with later on.
Right. And of course, in the new series, it was an actual particle accelerator. They were messing with things, right?
Exactly.
Would result in something like this.
Yeah, this one was just a total random accident. It's just like, oh, there's lightning. Boom. Darn it hit me.
And he pretty much, from the get-go, he recovers pretty quickly. The next day, he's like, hey, I feel fine. They need the bed at the hospital. I'm out of here.
Exactly.
And then he just starts to display symptoms. And his doctor actually tells him that he should go to Star Labs. And he, totally doesn't want to do it. He's so against it because apparently Star Labs has a really checkered past with their employees dying and stuff.
I know, a bad reputation.
I don't know. It's an interesting setup. I assume we're going to get into this more with Tina McGee, but it was her husband who actually died. He was doing some sort of research, undefined as yet, that resulted in him dying. And when they go into Star Labs, there's a weird line where Barry goes, "Who works here?" And she says, "Only me." I'm like, seriously? You own the place? Or you're just the only employee?
Right.
That's bizarre. Right. Is that kind of how it's going to play out across the whole show? That she's the only one who works at Star Labs?
pretty much. I mean, it kind of goes along with the CW show, how it's Cisco and Caitlin and Dr. Wells working there, but no one else, when it first starts. There's no one else working. It's just the three of them. And this is obviously it looks like a multi-million-dollar setup, with all this equipment and everything, but it's just the three of them. you know.
Well,
So
in the modern show, like they had a huge, massive, colossal accident happen there.
Right,
So I can
right.
understand if it's just like, hey, now it's the owner of the place and his 2 assistants that work there. Like everybody else has left. Here, it's like, hey, my husband died and now I'm the only person who works here. Like, why? Like, it's a huge place. Why is there not more employees of Star Labs?
Right.
It kind of just threw me for a loop a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
No, I can see what you're saying, definitely.
But yeah, of course, when Barry like realizes what's going on, you know, some weird stuff's happening. I mean, you can run all the way to Crystal Beach in like 2 seconds. He does end up going over there and meeting with Tina McGee, and she, I mean, from the get-go, I mean, she kind of throws out there like, this can be my life's work.
Yeah.
Testing you and finding out what happened can be my life's work. And that's a bold statement to just throw straight out there from the get-go. But it was good. I kind of like this testing phase, you know, the running on the treadmill and the organizing with the cards and all that sort of stuff to sort of get us set up for him
definitely.
becoming the Flash, yeah.
So I went and I looked up just to see, because they said while testing, you're going to cause a sonic boom. So I guess a sonic boom happens when you go 761 miles per hour, or if you're using the other system, it's 1,225 kilometers per hour. So I was trying to figure out like how that speed related to his speed like in the comics, because 761 miles per hour, that's definitely fast, but I know in the comics I think he goes even faster, because he's able to break the time barrier, it can't be just 761 miles per hour. So yeah, there's a whole article explaining about how fast his speed is and how much faster it is in the comics, and it goes into like a lot of detail, which we're not going to go over here. But I guess for the cases of the show, you can't have him going like crazy fast, because otherwise he's unbeatable.
I agree. You got to limit him somehow, or at least give him room to progress further.
Exactly.
Now, the next thing that it's kind of bugged me a little bit is the explanation for the suit. Like,
okay.
I get it. It's a perfectly reasonable explanation for how he gets his costume, right?
Right. Yes.
But the fact that whenever he has run so fast with his normal clothes on, they've just shredded to tatters.
Yes.
Or his feet set on fire or something like that, right?
Right, yep.
I'm assuming he's going to run really quickly without the suit on later on throughout this series, and that's probably not going to happen. So I'm kind of just bugged by that detail, that they would specifically say that in order to get him in this specialized suit.
I think a lot of it is he'll do quick like speedster tricks, like he'll reach over and grab something real quick and then back before you notice it's gone, so it won't affect his clothes so much, I guess. Because I don't recall too much about him running around without the suit on, actually.
All right. Well, we'll wait and see. But it's just
Yeah,
detail
we'll
that I thought was important to note, that when he runs really quickly with regular clothes, they get ruined. And that's why he makes a costume out of this quote-unquote Soviet-type deep sea suit.
Yeah.
Some sort of prototype.
Exactly. Which I really kind of like. I like the way it looks and everything, except the only thing is the nose piece. The pointed nose. Right. That's not a part of the actual original Flash costume. There was a costume in later years. I think it was in the sometime in the 90s when there was a Flash costume like that had the nose was there. But most of the costumes that you've seen with the Flash, they don't have that little nose piece sticking there. It just goes around, up over the bridge of the nose. So when it first came out, when the show first came out, that was the only thing that sort of took me aback. The rest of the suit looked great, but I was always like, oh, that nose though, it's it seemed odd, out of place.
I know. And they make this like off the cuff thing about how it's form fitting to the muscle.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, but your muscles aren't that big. Like it compensates or something, right? It's just a reason to have like this like muscular form fitting outfit to make him look strong.
They go to quite a few lengths to sort of show off John Wesley Shipp's physique, and it's pretty good.
Yeah,
he's got
I'm not saying he doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he doesn't look that big.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Until
he's not
in the
superhero proportion. Yeah. So, all right. So next we have the villains of the whole thing: Pike and the Black, weren't they the Dark Riders? I think they were the Dark Riders. Yeah.
Well, the
Pike
Dark
and the
Riders,
Dark Riders.
yeah. We find out Pike is at the head of the Dark Riders.
Yes. And let me tell you just a little bit about Pike, the actor. After The Flash, he went on to be pretty big in the soap opera world, I guess. All My Children. He did Dynasty. And I had to mention his character's name on one of those shows. I forget which show it was, but he played the character of Dex Dexter. That's such a terrible name. I'm Dex Dexter.
Smack your parents right in the face for naming him Dex Dexter.
So that was his character name in one of those soap operas. Just funny. I had to make that note.
Well, the other person I recognized is later on. There's those two guys, and one of them's yelling at him to turn the radio down.
Oh yeah,
he's like, "Hey man, you're blowing my head off."
Yeah,
that guy is Eric DeRay from Twin Peaks.
Oh, I didn't watch Twin Peaks. I didn't know.
Well, and of if you saw it, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 fame.
Oh, didn't see that either. Missed that one.
But yeah, I mean, this is right at the time of Twin Peaks too, so I guess, Eric DeRay was kind of cashing in on his celebrity a little bit or something. I don't know.
That's cool.
But yeah, I noticed him later on anyway.
Very cool.
But anyway, the Dark Riders, right? They're kind of, I guess they're just like causing mayhem all over the place. Like they just go out on their motorbikes and bomb cars and steal stuff, I guess.
Apparently, yeah, that's their whole thing, just to try to take over the city, or to cause terror in the city, and just, yeah. I wasn't quite sure either what was going on. I was like, are they, like, there was a guy and his baby and his wife and everything. Like, oh no, get inside. I'm like, I was like, that's going to come back. No, it's not. They're just random people that are getting scared, which is fine. It's fine.
Well, it turns out the whole motivation is that Pike used to be a cop, and a motorcycle cop at that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't know, they kind of try, they try to set him up as this ruthless leader. Like, there's this guy who stole like $600, like we're totally rich and we can get out now. And his girlfriend like turns on him and tells Pike. So they strap him to a motorbike and bomb him down some tube or something. It's a very weird sequence.
I kind of like his reveal, Pike's reveal, when he comes out. It's very grand. The music swells. It's this evil theme that comes up. It was done very well. The whole pilot is very cinematic. There's a lot of that in there. It feels big. To me, it feels larger than a normal TV pilot. So I like that. But yeah, his death scene was a little weird. The being strapped to the motorcycle and the bomb on the back.
Very bizarre.
I get why they did it, but still, it was a bit odd.
And then, like I said, the motivation for Barry to become the Flash is that Pike used to be Jay's partner, and then Jay busted him because he was doing all these illegal activities. So he pretty much sets up the same ruse against Jay.
Yes.
And then sort of, pops out and kills him.
Mm-hmm.
And Barry gets there too late to find out. It's like he just found out or something and he rushes over there, but it's too late. And then Jay dies in his arms. So that's pretty much like his motivation to be like, hey, they've got a symbol. I never saw a symbol, but he's like, hey, they've got this symbol that they use all over town. I've got a symbol of my own, which is that Flash Lightning logo.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird explanation for how he becomes the Flash. Like, I understand what they're trying to go for. I'm just it just seems a little ham-fisted for me.
Well, they're trying to, remember, this is the 90s. We're just it's not the modern day where things sort of fit into this puzzle that's that they plan out over the course of the whole season. This is coming off of the we had this Batman in the 60s, Wonder Woman in the 70s, we had the Christopher Reeve movies. It's all very it's pretty basic. They don't delve into overarching storylines that much, at this point. So it's a little simple, but the comic books were even simpler than that. He didn't even need the motivation to become the Flash. As soon as he got his powers, all his reading from the Jay Garrick comic books just sort of was like, oh, I can do what he does now, and I'm going to make a costume and, and stop crime as the Flash, So it's even more simple in the comics, as opposed to this.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, it kind of just goes all over the place, because there's there's Jay's death, and then it's Devil's Gate Dam, and then it's over to the prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so just everywhere, right?
I will say, it does change a little bit the character of Barry Allen, because in the comics, Barry Allen becomes the Flash because it's the right thing to do. He has powers, he's going to use them for good. And even over the course of the history of the Flash in the comics, he is like the symbol for hope. Barry Allen is a symbol for hope. He brings out the best in people. He always says the right thing as a hero, makes the right choice. He inspires them. And he even becomes the Blue Lantern at one point in the comic books. And the Blue Lantern powers, their power is from hope. So he becomes the living symbol of hope. That's him. In this one, it's a bit more down to earth. A relative has died, just like Batman. He wants to avenge his relative's death and becomes a superhero. So I think that's where this idea came from of Jay dying. To be his motivation, to make it a callback to that.
Well, yeah, it's shorthand because audiences are familiar and they can identify that quickly.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's cool. So that's his motivation. He's the Flash. Let's go with it.
I mean, they probably wanted to avoid the Superman trap of just someone who's just naturally good, good. Just good for goodness sake. Like, that can't happen. Why would they do that?
So, yeah, all this stuff, the hideout, the prison. The prison attack, I thought was going to go for a bit longer. I thought it was just all going to be, in the prison and fighting your way through the halls and stuff like that. No. They, Barry, covers the place in tear gas. Pike he's up and out of there.
Yeah, he is.
And now they're down in the sewers and they're just fighting there. And because of Barry's, dizzy spells, he's still adjusting. Pike gets the upper hand on him for all of 3 minutes. And then Barry kind of just catches him or electrocutes him.
Yep.
And then ties him up.
I thought he was dead.
Right?
When he fell, I was like, holy crap, I don't remember him killing him.
It was like this weird tornado, run around him really quickly, so he flies up, and then he's just, massively electrocuted.
Uh-huh.
And then falls down, but he's not dead.
Exactly.
So Pike survived, I guess?
Yeah. As far as we can tell, he survived. That tornado effect, I happened to notice that promo video I was talking about showed how they made that tornado effect. And they used John Wesley Shipp in the suit and a stuntman at the same time. And they both just ran around Pike pretending to punch him. And then they just sped that up later on. So it looked like he was going really fast.
Yeah, I noticed they've done that a lot, really.
Oh, yeah.
It's all very practical and then just speed up the footage.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We'll see how well that works as we go along. It's a bit iffy. But, all in all, I still think it was a pretty good introduction to the character, good setup. Yeah, I think it's got potential to go place. So I'm looking forward to see where we go.
Definitely.
And now it's time for another episode of Say It Like You Mean It with Barry Allen.
You're really grossing me out, Tanner.
This has been another episode of Say It Like You Mean It with Barry Allen.
All right, so let's get into our second episode discussion today. The episode is Out of Control, written by Gail Morgan Hickman, directed by Mario Azzopardi, and that name sounds very familiar, I think from Lois and Clark.
It could be, yeah.
This originally aired September 27th of 1990.
Oh, Carl, meet a very good friend of mine, Barry Allen, Barry Carl Tanner.
How do you do?
Hi, how are you? Well, how long has it been? When was the last time I saw you?
The UN Science Conference in New York 2 years ago.
Yes.
Oh, Carl and my husband and I were all friends in college.
Oh, rivals, you mean? David and I were both in love with Tina.
Oh, Carl.
Oh, we were. It's true. I'm really glad you could make it tonight.
So am I.
So, Carl, you're here on a lecture tour, huh?
On a research grant at the university, which will put me in town for about a year.
How's the work going?
Fine. It's pretty technical, and usually most people wouldn't understand it.
Well, I'm up on my recombinant DNA and gene splicing.
I'm afraid it goes a bit beyond that, Barry.
Try me.
Are you familiar with the work of Rosenblatt and Viscovich on genetic reorganization? Or Petrello's research on radical mutation?
Well, of course, the real groundbreaking's going on in Amsterdam. Van Decker and Scheinberg?
Van Decker, aren't they those TV lawyers?
Try any case for $49.95. Sorry.
And I also apologize for getting carried away. It's just that I never get a chance to talk with someone who shares my work.
Really, Carl, your lecture was very interesting. The end of disease, birth defects, reversal of the aging process. It does raise some very interesting moral questions, though, don't you think?
Well, it's not my responsibility to be the conscience of the human race. I'm only a scientist.
I disagree. I think we're all responsible.
I'm afraid I do have a very early appointment tomorrow morning.
Well, let me take you home then.
Oh, all right. Is that okay, Barry?
Yeah. Good night.
As homeless people go missing off the streets of Central City, Tina reunites with an old flame/friend from before her and her husband were married, a scientist named Carl Tanner who is working on genetic engineering, hoping to solve the problems of aging, disease, and defects. As Carl escorts Tina home from his lecture, they are approached by a homeless man, and Carl gives the man $20, commenting about the man's wasted life. As the pair reach her house, Carl kisses her, surprising her, and she rushes inside. Meanwhile, Julio is trying to convince Barry to ask out Tina for a real date now that Iris has dumped him and moved to Paris, but Barry contends that they are merely friends. Downstairs in the police station lobby, homeless people are surging to get inside, complaining about the lack of work the police are doing with the missing men in their community. A fight breaks out in the standoff with one homeless man grabbing a policeman's gun. Barry changes into his supersuit and grabs the gun away from him before anyone knows what has happened. One of the homeless men turns out to be Charlie, a former classmate of Barry's. In an effort to help, he offers him a job at Star Labs as a security guard. But as Charlie walks away, Barry hears a scream from an alleyway and investigates as the Flash. As Carl looks on and watches, hidden in the shadows, Barry finds a homeless man looking horribly mutated. However, the next day at the morgue, Barry inspects the body of the homeless man, only to discover he has returned to normal with no visible mutations. The next day, Tina has a dinner date with Carl in which he presses her for information about her late husband's research notes that could contain useful information, seeing as he and Carl were working on similar projects. She refuses to give them to him, fearing that since they led to her husband's death, they could do the same for Carl. He lets the issue drop, but proceeds to drug Tina and takes a scan of her eye, enabling him to get into Star Labs. Charlie sees an alarm trip, and while investigating, Tanner knocks him out from behind. Barry turns up, but gets trapped within a vacuum chamber, the oxygen being drained away courtesy of Carl. He manages to use his super speed and Charlie's badge to create a hole in the glass, saving them both. Carl, using the information from the stolen notes, tests his new genetic research on a dog, resulting in a monster that terrorizes the city for a few short minutes before running out of steam and turns back into his normal doggy self, much the way the dead homeless man had done. The Flash confronts Carl, who quickly injects himself with the formula, turning himself into a hulkish, monstrous figure and quickly overpowers a speedster. Monster Carl reverts to normal quickly and heads to Tina's, where he reveals his hatred of the homeless, having grown up like that himself, and explaining why he used the homeless as test subjects. He knocks Tina out when she won't help and uses her machines to work up another version of the formula, injects himself, and once again finds his overpowered mutant form facing the recovered Flash, who takes innocent homeless people out of harm's way, but then literally wraps things up quickly, capturing the mutated monster who reverts once again to his normal self.
What are you? Are you nuts? I don't know anything about science and computers.
No, you don't need to. It's a night watchman's job. Look, Charlie, I spoke to a friend of mine. She works here, all right? It's already set up.
I don't know,
And there's
man.
a small room with a bed and a hot plate.
Yeah, right.
What? All I did was offer you a job.
I'm not a charity case. Yeah, I got my pride.
Yeah, well, maybe too much pride.
Look, I know you know who I am. Just quit trying to ease your conscience.
Look, we were friends in school, man, that's all.
No, we weren't friends. We hardly knew each other.
We know each other now.
So what?
So what? So, give it a try.
Look, I haven't had a job in years, okay? What if I screw up?
They'll fire you. Come on, try. You made it on the street.
make it there.
All right, so we don't have too much in the way of flashpoints with this one.
No, we had enough in the last one, so we kept it light for this one. But the main thing is that someone on the radio mentions the corner of Gardner and Fox, which is a reference, obviously, to the creator of the original Jay Garrick Flash, which was Gardner Fox.
I did not know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's the Flash from the 1940s. It would have been. So that's when the original Flash came out. So Gardner Fox was the guy.
Well, there you go. Yeah, they did actually make a reference. I think we forgot to mention it in the first episode about Star Labs being on Garrick Avenue as well.
Oh,
so.
That's right. They did mention that.
So I think maybe we'll have to keep our ears open for
definitely
street names, because they kind of did it here and there in Lois and Clark as well, if I remember.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, very fun.
I think whoever broke into the lab was looking for David's research notebooks on genetic engineering.
You know who it is?
I'm not sure.
Oh, come on, Tina. It's Carl Tanner.
I can't believe that.
Well, look at the evidence. His arrival in town coincides with the Skid Row disappearances. And Julio tested one of the bodies. The bloodstream was spiked with mutating cells. What do you think? You can't protect him just because you're in love with him.
I am not protecting him. And since when did you become an expert on my love life?
He's using you.
You sound almost glad that Carl might be the killer.
That's ridiculous.
Is it?
Yes.
Aren't you just a little bit jealous?
No.
Let's just forget this, okay?
Oh, forget it, huh? Aren't you being a little childish?
Childish? I'm not the one running around trying to save the world.
If that's how you feel, maybe we should just dissolve this little partnership.
Yeah. Maybe we should.
All right, so let's get into the rundown. First order of business. Iris is gone? She's just left? What?
He's gone.
Just up and moved to Paris. Hey,
Yep.
I know we're in love, but I'm going to Paris. See you later.
Yeah.
Is she gone for the series?
She's gone for the series.
Oh, wow.
In the comics, she's a big part of his life,
Yeah.
But, again, this is a mashup of Wally West and Barry Allen. And Wally West had a romance with Tina McGee. So I think that's where they're kind of going with this.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah. You can see it in the pilot. There was some looks between the two of them where you're like, oh, is there something there? But then you had Iris in the way, and, they had to find a way to get rid of her. So I think that's where they're going with this whole thing.
Well, I thought that they would at least have her in the show and sort of just ease her out. Like, I understand they're probably going to go with a romance with Tina McGee, but it's like they just, they did that pilot episode and they said, nope, we'd rather just get straight into a budding romance with Tina McGee. And we're going to set that up straight away and get Iris out of here.
Exactly.
Like, did they just not like the actress or something? Like, that is a shitty way to write a character out of the show. She's just gone. She moved.
It is a bad way. I didn't like the actress, so I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. When she showed up in that first episode, I was like, oh, she's just grating on my nerves.
It was a pretty bad characterization. I agree.
I mean, it's not like, she's not like Candace Patton in the new CW show. It's like, oh, I like her. But no, this Iris was a bad Iris.
I know. She was whiny and, a little up her own butt, I think. So
yeah.
It's probably for the best. But still, I'm just like, it's a TV show. Like, don't just write someone out that they're gone. Like,
right.
That's just there. You can do better than that. Come on. Anyway. That's my rant over.
Yeah, it's Cory Metcalf, advocate for written out characters everywhere. Have you been written out of your show? Call Cory.
It may as well just be like those exposition extras from Sliders, People just drop in and say something just to move the plot along and then leave. Like, she's just a glorified exposition extra. And now she's gone.
Exactly.
All right, so the main point of this episode, disappearing homeless people.
Yes.
It's an interesting setup, with this, homeless guy getting all, weird in the face and then dying and then disappearing. Yeah, I don't know what to make of this setup, but, they play close to the vest, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is an episode I did not remember very well until I saw Monster Carl later. So this one I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And it's pretty much brought to the attention of Barry through a new character, Father Michael.
And I don't know this character from the comics at all. He may have been in there, but he wasn't a huge player. If he was, I don't remember him.
Yeah, it kind of makes me worried that they're just going to do this all the time. It'll just be like somebody shows up and Barry will be like, hey, Father Michael, like, I haven't seen you in forever. How can I help you?
Exactly.
You know, it's just like making out Barry to be like the nicest guy who just knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't go that way. But yeah, it was just kind of convenient that it's just like, hey, Father Michael. And then, you know, this whole thing is going to come around later and it's going to be tied in with Tina McGee as well. And it's like, okay, so everybody just kind of knows each other.
Yeah.
Tangentially, you know, three degrees of Kevin Bacon and whatnot. That's
right.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't go that way. That's all I'm saying. But
yeah, I can't remember.
It's still a pretty good character. I didn't mind Father Michael.
Yeah, he was fine. Yeah, decent character.
And he's our tie-in with the homeless, right? Because the homeless go to his parish a lot, right? And that's where we get introduced to Charlie, who turns out to be Charles Wright, a former school friend of Barry's.
Yeah, and again, like, probably just made up for the show. I don't like. There's nothing remarkable, you know, about him in particular. So I don't think he's from the comics. I could, you know, it's another character for the story.
Well, I'm going to assume he's going to be something of a recurring character. He has a bit of an arc in this episode where Barry kind of feels sorry for him, gets him a job as a security guard at Star Labs. I know Star Labs needs a security guard. There's only one person who works there, but somebody's got to guard Tina's work.
Yeah, and again, like, see, again, I couldn't remember much about this episode at all. So, like, he's not a character that, like, stuck in my mind. So I'm not sure if we're going to see him again or not. We'll have to wait and see.
No. I recognize the actor. You know, he's definitely that guy. You know, when you see the stuff, you're like, I know that guy. I've seen that guy.
Yep.
So, yeah, I figured he's going to be in there a bit. But he's kind of funny, you know. He's quick-witted and stuff like that. And, you know, I like the story as well, you know. He's the homeless guy. He hasn't worked in a long time. Barry gets him this job. There's also a place to stay there at Star Labs. I'm not surprised. Again, Tina McGee's the only one who works there, so there's plenty of room.
Right.
For Charlie to have a room in the back with a cot and everything. But yeah, you know, I kind of like his progression of the thing. And of course, setting up Barry to be the nice guy. You know, he can really help people out where he needs to. And then we got the villain, Carl Tanner.
Yes.
Now, did you pick that he was going to be the bad guy from the get-go?
I did, you know, just because, you know, like, he's talking about genetic research and all this stuff. And then Barry says, well, you know, shouldn't we be concerned about the moral implication? He's like, nope. I'm like, oh, okay. He's the bad guy. He doesn't care about the moral implication of any of this stuff. So yeah, you know, I mean, I'm not against any type of research and stuff like that. It's fine. You know, whatever they're doing is fine. But, you know, when he said, nope, no moral obligations. Okay, you're the bad guy.
They did have a weird conversation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning when he's introduced, he's like, hey, Tina, you know, yeah, me and Tina's husband were like both in love with her and stuff. And you're like, that's awkward.
Very awkward.
I know, just to bring that up in front of a stranger, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then he starts talking about his work. He's like, it's very, very complicated, right? And Barry's there, like, looking all smug. Like, he's like, hey, try me, right? That's the moment where, like, Barry actually, like, knows what he's talking about, right? Barry's also a scientist, right? But instead, they get Barry to play this joke where he pretends to know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
But the names he's spouting out are just cheesy TV lawyers or something.
I know.
And he doesn't know anything.
I was like, what? Like, the joke kind of fell flat for me even, you know? Like even Tina, like, for her, obviously, the joke fell flat. I was sitting there, I was like, that's lame, Barry. What the hell, man?
Barry even apologizes. He kind of sort of chuckles, says sorry, and I'm like, yeah, you should be. That was terrible.
That was awful.
That's a dad joke, and you're not even a dad. What is wrong with you?
Exactly.
Maybe he's preparing them for his nephew or something. His nephew's got no father anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
It makes me wonder if we're going to see that nephew again, too.
No, We're not going to see the next movie.
I'll be there for you always. See you later.
Yep, never again.
I don't know. It's this. I'm not saying I'm not having a good time with this show. I'm just saying that it's a little inconsistent here or there, and that is bugging me a little bit.
Okay, all right.
At this point, anyway.
See, for me, it's just the nostalgia. You know, I loved the Batman movie, and this was like another character, seemingly in that universe, due to the music, due to the costume, the sets, and everything. It just makes me feel like that world expanded a little bit. You know, so I enjoy it for that. I enjoy it for that aspect of it.
All right, so we may as well get into the whole plot here, the experiment, if you will. All right,
Yes.
so Tanner is in genetic research, and this is very close to the work that her husband was working on when he was killed in his lab accident. So
Yes.
Tina's very standoffish about helping Carl with anything that he's doing. Like, he's requesting stuff, and she's like, no, you know he was working on it. You know it killed him. I'm not giving you anything, and I don't want you to be doing it either.
Yep.
And he is just whatever, you know. And, and then he's also, like, very mean towards a homeless guy. Even though he gives him $20, he's very mean towards this homeless guy. What's up with that subplot, right? It is so weird that they come back to that later after the fact about his homeless parents or something.
Yes, he did not have the privileged upbringing that he sort of said he did. It was all a lie. He grew up poor and, you know, pulled himself out of that, you know, out of that to become successful. But yeah, it was a weird. It took me. I was like, what is going on here? Like when he turned into the monster and all, it's like, why did he want to do this? I actually had to go back and rewatch a couple parts to figure out, oh, that's right. This is genetic research. Okay. And he's using homeless people. Oh, okay. All right. It links to his parents. I get it now. Okay. It took me a second because I was like, what is going on?
I know. It's just the weirdest thing because he's been testing on these homeless people. And then after he drugs Tina and breaks into Star Labs to get the info on what her husband was working on, he makes a version of this injection or something. And he's like, oh, how did I miss that? It's so obvious. And then he tests it on a dog. I'm just like, why wasn't he just doing animal testing this whole time? Like, why did he have to go out and inject it into homeless people? Like, why not get it to the point where human trials are ready to rock and roll? Like, I'm not saying animal testing's a good thing.
Exactly. I was going to say, wait a second. Just a second.
But
disclaimer.
I think it's more ethical to do animal testing than it is to just jump straight into human testing and kill a bunch of people for no reason.
Oh, Pete is going to kill you now.
I'm sorry.
Pete is going to be on our
saying.
page.
That seems just a little bit more ethical. As bad as animal testing is...
Oh, it's been a nice run. The Rewatch podcast shut down by Peter.
I'll reiterate. I'm not saying I like animal testing. It's just better to test on animals than it is to go out and kill a bunch of people with untested product.
The hole just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Corey's digging away.
But yeah, I don't know. And by testing on this dog, he creates a werewolf for some reason. I don't know how making monsters is improving, like, genetic and reversal of the aging process and everything that he was talking about at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that, like, he doesn't seem... I would imagine this would be like a first stage thing, and then maybe after, like... Maybe the monster part is a side effect or something, and then when you turn back,
he seems well pleased with it when he injects himself. He's like,
does.
"Hey, what do you think?"
He does.
Pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, real awesome. And yeah, it's like it was kind of comical because he's like, "What do you think?" You know, as if he doesn't realize he's like hideously mutated into this monster. Because Tina's eyes are like bulging out, like, "What the hell did you do?"
Yeah.
I mean, what do you...
Carl, what are you doing?
It's like, what do you think, baby? You know, it's like, no, wrong.
Oh man, he's kind of a full-on character, right? As
Yeah.
well. Like when Tina goes to like grab at him, like when he's synthesizing that second batch or something, and he just turns around like backhands her.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like,
I know.
what?
I was like, that's rough.
What was that? Jeez.
When he was changing into the monster, though, I will tell you, it reminded me full on of Bill Bixby turned into the Hulk from the TV show.
Yeah. Do you reckon it was the same actor under there, or do you think they got someone different?
I think it was the same actor. I think it could have been.
It was hard to tell. Like, I'm looking at it because he's got, the real buff chest and everything.
Right.
It kind of seemed like a bit of a younger man, but it could have been a prosthetic or something.
I think it was a prosthetic. When I looked, there was a scene there where I saw part of his chest exposed in the with his shirt, and it just looked a little bit doughy. It didn't look like a real chest to me.
Yeah, I think just with all that prosthetics, it was kind of hard to tell, and they kind of modulate his voice a bit.
Yeah, they do.
And then, like, the ending of it as well, because the Flash shows up. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of flashlight on this, right?
It is, yeah.
There was the thing with the oxygen chamber,
yep.
which is just in the corner. Of course, I've just got this oxygen thing in the corner that sucks all the oxygen out of it.
Right.
It's just there.
It's like, why?
Barry gets locked in it. But then he shows up at the end and rolls Carl Tanner up in this chain link fence, and then he changes back into Carl Tanner again.
Yes.
And Tina McGee, like, runs up to him. She's like, Carl, are you okay? And he just goes, don't touch me. And she's like, fine.
I know. It's like, I'm trying to show
F you, man. Like, whatever. I'm out of here. And that's how it ends. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
It's a quick wrap.
It's very abrupt. Like, we've seen abrupt endings in Lois and Clark and stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That was just a quick wrap up.
That
like
was
a
very
literal quick wrap up too. So yeah, I don't know. I really liked that pilot episode. I thought it was good. This one just it had a few inconsistencies for me.
Yeah.
And it's fine if they're maybe changing things just a little bit because it's the second episode and they just want to get rid of things. The Iris thing really annoyed me that she's just gone. I think it's just little inconsistency. So I'm hoping that this isn't going to be, a reoccurring thing across each episode where I'm going to be thinking back to a previous episode and go, oh, but you said this in the previous thing, and
right,
saying this, and like I hope that they're going to keep a somewhat coherent storyline as we go ahead.
I know,
because you know me, I will nitpick that till the cows come home.
We will have to see. Yeah, we'll see as it goes on. Like I said, I don't remember, and I watch shows now since we started the Rewatch podcast with a different eye than I did back in the day. So, I remember loving this show a lot, but it might be different now that we're going through with this more critical look.
We'll find out, I guess.
Yes.
Carl!
I can't go back to the university. I need your lab. They don't understand how important my work is. If they catch me, then it's all for nothing. You understand. I know you do.
You murdered people. Innocent people.
It had to be done, Tina.
But how could you use human beings as guinea pigs?
Their lives are worthless, I know. My parents were just like them. My real parents. They lived in a tenement in filth.
But I thought you...
Oh, the privileged childhood, the big house on the coast. A lie. An invention to cover my shame. They should all be cleaned off the streets, washed away like dirt. The formula has to be ionized. I learned that in David's notes.
Carl, dude, I can't let you do this!
Okay, so we're thinking that towards the end of the episode here that we might have some sort of flashback segment like we used to with Lois and Clark, right?
Yeah, so with Lois and Clark, we'd found some old Google forums. I mean, it wasn't Google at the time, but Google took them over at some point. And it gave us a look into the insight of what people were thinking back when the episodes aired. So they were the thoughts of viewers of Lois and Clark when they first aired. And it was kind of cool to see what people were thinking, So if anybody knows of any old forums like that has, people commenting back in 1990 about this show, we'd love to try to include that if we can, but we haven't found anything yet.
It might be too early. There may not even be any out there.
Exactly.
If we can find anything that's sort of related to fans talking about the show at the time it was airing in 1990, we'd love to hear from anybody who's seen it or knows where to find it. Okay, so let's get into a bit of feedback, and we actually have one feedback. I'm very
Yeah,
excited.
we do. This comes from Martin over at the Arrow Squad podcast here on GSM as well.
Martin the Flash.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because for the last let's see with season 3 for the last 2 or 3 years here I've been listening to CCU, and I always heard this guy call in with feedback to those guys over there, and he was always Martin the Flash, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, and then here he is, he's calling into this one too. Yes. So I'm like, cool, I know that guy.
This is what we were hoping for, folks. Like, we wanted to introduce ourselves on GSM, and we thought this was the perfect way to do it. So we get a bit of crossover from CCU. I love it.
Exactly.
So let's go ahead and play Martin's feedback and see what he has to say about The Flash in 90.
This is Martin here, host of Arrow Squad, also on Golden Spiral Media. Of course, I'm going to send you some feedback about the 90s Flash, because I love that show. In fact, I go by the moniker The Flash on my podcast. So, the 90s Flash was great in its own time. Even though it was pretty cheesy, they kind of made it in the vein of the old 60s Batman and Robin TV show. It had a similar type of goofiness, but nonetheless, we didn't have much superhero stuff on TV back then, so it was a lot of fun. I think my 2 favorite scenes I remember from it is the first time he discovered his powers in the pilot episode, when he wakes up from being struck by the lightning and he goes to catch the bus, and he streaks off like 100 miles away and runs right into the ocean. That scene always made me laugh. I also loved when his scientist partner, played by Amanda Pays, wanted to test his abilities. Or was it a racetrack? Can't remember. But she wanted to see how fast he could go and what his limits were. So he's racing around the track and the camera pulls away. And all you see is this red streak ripping around the track at like 700 kilometers an hour or however fast he was going. Back then, that just wowed me, because I've always loved the Flash. He's my favorite DC character. It's just so cool to see him doing that. Now, my complaint about the show is that they never really introduced any supervillains at all. I mean, most of the season, he fought a motorcycle gang. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, it was hilarious when Mark Hamill came on to play the Trickster. That was right out of the comics. That was great. But there really wasn't a lot other than that. So, yeah, that was, probably his biggest fault was not having a decent enough villains for him to face. And then when you start hearing the rumors that the show's being canceled because it's too expensive to produce, I think it was doing well in the ratings. I think it was doing fine because, like I said, there was no superhero show. So it's fun. It's a great little history thing. I love how they brought John Wesley Shipp back to be part of the new Flash TV show. I love how they brought Amanda Pays back. It's fun that they're kind of paying homage to the Flash, where it all began on TV. So thanks. I'll have to listen to your guys' podcast about it. This will be cool.
All right, that's cool. So, would you take it that Martin watched the show when it initially ran back in 90?
Yeah, I'd say so. He's right there with me. Yeah, some of his favorite scenes are definitely ones that stand out in my mind. The running into the ocean, seeing the Flash run around that speed track. Actually, that reminds me of what they did in the new Flash show as well when they were testing him on the speed track. Again, calling back, I like how the current show calls back to the old show. And then, of course, like he said, with the villains, yeah, our villains so far in the series are not exactly comic book villains yet, And I will say, see, that's the whole thing. The way they interpreted the villains for this show, they're just not super memorable. The Trickster, like he mentioned, like Martin mentioned, he's like the memorable one. That's the one that the people remember. But they do actually introduce some other comic book villains, but they're just so different from how they were in the comics that they just don't stick with you.
I'm sure we'll discuss it as we get into it.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I'm looking forward to it anyway. I'm glad that they're not just going to go with these, motorcycle types, as he puts it.
I know, seriously.
But yeah, no, I hope he sticks with the show. It's always great to have people giving us feedback, especially audio feedback, so we can hear their voices.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's really great. Thank you for being our first bit of feedback on this, Martin. It's great.
Yeah, woohoo! Thank you.
All right, so next week we will be discussing 2 more episodes, and those episodes are Watching the Detectives and Honor Among Thieves. Now, I know you've seen the series, but do we want to keep going with what we were doing before and sort of take a guess at what we think the episodes are?
Sure. I have no idea what either of these would be about because it's been so long. I can't even imagine watching the detectives. So I imagine maybe someone with this one, maybe someone's going to find out or maybe suspect something's going on with Barry because he is a police scientist, detective, so maybe they're suspecting something with him, so they're keeping a watch on him, maybe?
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. I was thinking that maybe it might have something to do with, like, Barry teaming up with the detectives or something like that, sort of expanding his job title, maybe.
Right.
Honor Amongst Thieves, I reckon that's going to have something to do with a gang of some kind. I mean, with the Dark Riders out of the picture, maybe set up some sort of new gang in town.
Yeah, could be. I don't remember. There are some iconic villains coming up, but I think it's still too early for them. I think they don't show up till later. So, some kind of gang thing maybe. Oh, well, that's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Remember, you can head over to goldenspiralmedia.com/Apple for more great podcasts from Golden Spiral Media. Join us on Facebook over at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast and on Twitter at Rewatch Pod. And also, your rate and reviews are always appreciated. So if you could, hop on over to iTunes or the podcast app of your choice and give us an old 5-star rating there and say some nice words about us, please.
All right. Well, as always, thank you for joining me, Tom.
Oh, yes, of course.
An interesting start to a new series.
Yes.
And I'm really looking forward to checking out the rest of this single season of The Flash 90.
Me too.
Well, that will just leave me to say, until next time. I know an unhappy childhood probably led you to this, but that's really no excuse.
We gotta run.
Golden Spiral Media and the Rewatch Podcast are not associated with Pet Fly Productions, Warner Brothers Television, or Warner Brothers Television Distribution.
Come on, let's go down to Burger World so I can get some to eat.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is solely for parody, news, analysis, critique, or educational purposes, as provided in United States Codes Title 17, aka Fair Use.
I don't believe you! You're still worried about your experiment, about your life's work?
Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
If all else fails, we can always go to Vegas.
Copyright 2017, Golden Spiral Media.
Hey, what's your hurry? You got someplace to go?